Well, hello everyone. You've found your way to another life in the arts. And this, uh, I keep, it is very hard for me to stop saying things like this evening or this afternoon. Uh, but I have absolutely no idea when you're watching this. And it's probably whatever time it isn't where it is now. So anyway, but for us, it's good evening. And we are visiting with Neil Chollick, artist, and we're going to hear about his journey from the corporate world into the fine arts. But first, we want to hear from Todd Whitley, who is the executive director of the Masterwork Foundation, who's going to tell you about the foundation and what we do.
Thank you, Joe. Well, the Masterwork Music and Art Foundation, for those of you who are new to us, started over 60 years ago and has been supporting excellence in the arts all that time, or most of that time. Today, we offer a number of awards. There's a Premier Award. It's a $10,000 grant that goes out for a work that's created by an artist or a group of artists. There are community arts grants that we issue that really are intended to elevate engagement in the arts on the community level. And then there's this series, A Life in the Arts, where we celebrate people who have dedicated their lives in different ways to the arts. And so, Neil, thank you for joining us tonight and sharing some of your story with us.
Okay.
Thank you, Todd. Glad to be here. Thank you, Joe, too.
Okay. Well, we've talked a bit, and I don't know many details of your story, but I do know that you were a longtime resident in that thing we call the corporate world. And so I, you know, a great part of what we're looking for in these presentations is, well, we're trying to provide some guidance and inspiration for people who would like a life in the arts, and but who maybe uh, haven't figured out how to get there. And the only thing I will tell you, having done over 35 of these, is that there is no one path. So, Neil, what was your path?
Well, it's, like any path, it's one step forward, two back, and three around, and all kinds of, different ways. But basically, my life started as an artist, started before I was born. Both of my parents were artists,
Hmm.
fine artists, but, to make a living, they had to do commercial work.
Sure.
So my father managed a big studio, and this was the time in the, late 50s, 60s, 70s when the studios did all the work for the advertising agencies. They did all the pay stubs, the ads, they did it all. It wasn't, anything, the computers weren't around. And,
Right.
an advertising agency had a small bullpen and everything, but the bulk of the work got farmed out. So my father really cut his teeth with all of um, he could do anything. He really could. He could have been like the creative director at a huge agency, but he preferred the studio life, and he would paint incessantly after supper. He'd be painting till 2, 3 in the morning. My mother was an artist too, but not as driven. So my father really had that drive. And our house was filled with all their paintings and sculptures and stuff. So they really had this great life, and it was just natural for me to be around art. I didn't even have a TV for many years growing up, so I had to, make your own amusements and stuff. One of the big formative things that really gave me a great foundation and a great appreciation for culture and art and people was every summer we traveled to Europe for 2.5 months. So we'd spend
Mm.
like a month in one country, travel around, because my father only had a month vacation. My mother and brother and I would go around after he left. So we'd spend a month in one country, like Italy or Spain or Israel. And then my mother and brother and I would travel around to other countries for another month and a half. And in that time, we saw every historical site, every museum, every relic, every ruined cathedral. It was great, just at a young age to be able to do that and have that in my memory banks.
Mm,
It really was something for me to draw on when I finally did go to college. I had, it was the mid 70s. I was, everyone's a little lost and stuff along the way, getting into this and that. And I dropped out of school twice, 2 semesters in a row.
okay.
Went to work in a factory for, was a messenger, just, had my
Mhm.
share of what life is like without a college.
Okay.
And then when I went back to college, I was still lost until I took an art class. And I liked it. I had one art class because here's a blank piece of paper, show me something next week. So I have all week to work on a little project, whether it's drawing a line or just anything. There were no tests, no homework. It was just, and you could see the fruits of your labor. So I went to Queens College, got a Bachelor of Fine Arts degree. This was about 1985 that I graduated. And then computers were just coming out, right? That was about the time of the Apple IIe, the Apple IIc, all the different, the Amiga, Commodore, all that stuff. So I had gotten an Apple IIe and just started, doing stuff on the computer, which I found was a great little way to, it was an interesting toy, I guess.
Mm,
Yes. Um, I hadn't really been doing that much art. What I did for employment after that, I found this niche of the corporate world in presentations, slideshows, and this
ah,
was
okay.
this was the days when slides were slides.
Right.
A West-mounted slide, you put your film in and have carousels and banks of projectors and all that. So that was fun. I mean, I learned typesetting, I learned some paste up. I never did any camera work, but I got an appreciation for the business, and I made that my career. Obviously, went into computers and PowerPoint and all that for 30, 40 years. Um, Eventually working for a big pharmaceutical advertising agency, which actually brought me to Ridgefield many times. 20 years ago, I had no idea that it was such a beautiful area, beautiful town, and wonderful people because Boring to Ringelheim is all the way up by the expressway.
Right. Yeah.
So you just go there, you go in, you're out. You
Right.
don't go through the town. So it was funny many years later when my wife said, "We're moving to Ridgefield." And I said, "What's there?" It's just, there's nothing there. But we've been here
Right.
now about 2.5 years, and it's just a wonderful, wonderful town. I can't say how glad I am to be here.
Right. Well, so the one thing that, particularly in that world of presentation, I suspect uh, that you learned a lot of communication skills in terms about how to make some abstract point, how to make that talk to people who aren't in whatever that discipline was. Particularly if
Yes,
you're working for Boehringer Ingelheim, they're a big pharmaceutical firm at the north end of our town. So
yes. I mean, it was great because it's live. You're walking into a room full of strangers. They don't know you, you don't know them. How do you connect? And what
right.
I really learned, it's not really what you know. It's they want to make a connection with the people, with the team. It's not just, oh,
Yeah.
this they really know what they're talking about. They have to like you,
Mm,
and so I always love that aspect of it, just live. You never know what's going to happen. There was something always
no.
funny that happened in rehearsals or even at the presentation. And I learned that if you just make light of it, go with it, it's nerve-wracking. I never had to get up and speak, thank God. I was, I just helped the team do the slides. But I felt it was important because without a good-looking presentation, you have no credibility.
Right.
So I always felt, as important as anyone else on the team.
Yeah.
So it was a good career, but you know what? 30 years, 35 years, it's time for the next move.
Well, the next move we can see some of over your shoulder there.
Welcome to my gallery.
Okay.
Um,
So, but at any rate, no, I can relate to a whole bunch of this since I did a long, well, I'm still doing it as on the side of working in the world of tech, and I assistant managed the first Computerland store. So all of those different computers we had, and then had to tell people that, oh well, yeah, the Amiga just discontinued your that whole thing. I actually knew somebody who was still using an Amiga as a video recording device
Mm.
about 30 years after they had made the last one. So,
See, if it works, it always works, right?
right.
And I'm definitely a low tech guy. I appreciate all the tech, but my work is done. A lot of it's done in PowerPoint, which I'm almost embarrassed to say. But
It's I use it almost every day, and it's
yeah,
but on the other hand, uh, that the biggest problem that I have is watching people who put up together a nice slide deck and then proceed to read the slides to us.
yes.
It's like there is that phrase "death by PowerPoint."
There's a whole book on. There's a very good book about that. It's very
Yeah.
cute. Yeah, I mean, it can be great, but it can be deadly too.
Oh, yeah.
And I just found that the design by committee, it just doesn't have that, I don't know, that super produced thing. It's just like a little collection. Here's some good ones, here's some bad ones. It just doesn't hang together sometimes, and we try to make it like that. And a lot of the times it does, but I don't know. I'm glad I did it, but I'm kind of glad to be out of that and doing my own thing, which
Right.
is it's scary. And I did like being part of a group and working, with other people and ideas and bouncing things off. But that's that. And a lot of the skills I've learned have translated to this, but now it's something completely different.
So you create video pieces, and the I love on your business card it says art that moves you.
Right.
And
Well, if let me go to my website now, and I'll kind of give you an idea of how it looks when it's moving,
yeah,
and play around with that, and then you can kind of see how this output is a result of that.
right.
So let's see if I can get to share my screen.
Show
So,
us what you'd like to, Neil.
right, this is art that moves you, art that you move. And a little modest thing where painting comes to life on a journey through time and space. It's very modest. It's very humble statement. But basically, I create these little pieces. I don't want to call them paintings because they're not paintings. They're not movies. They're, let me show you just how one runs. So I've set it up where you can just watch it. It's like, it's relaxing, but you can also play with all the different controls. Speed it up, stop it, uh, go incrementally, flip it around, and just basically kind of scrub through it, um, change the speed, and put music to it too. I wish I had music on, but it just goes with anything that's kind of flowing.
It is better that we don't, because then we will have YouTube kvetching about copyright.
True,
So
true. That's I
we
don't I don't need those headaches, right?
no, and we've even had things where someone is singing and they'll complain about copyright, but it's
Really.
that guy. But no, the problem is that copyright also reverts to the composer. Now, in the case of the one that they were complaining about, the guy was 18th century. So I don't think anybody's collecting royalties for him anymore. But
Right. Well, once it's in the domain, but then you have
yeah,
to give the person who's performing it.
right.
Okay, well, maybe I'll just hum or whistle
Yeah,
and that.
that's good.
So
But these are all different patterns. And
yes, and this is another sequence here. So, like something like this, this is a piece of output that was from that.
okay,
So this little piece of out, it's not from this screen, but
right.
it
So
just
it,
allows you to play. And honestly, there's imagery there if if you're so
yeah,
inclined to see it. A lot of people don't, but the more you look at it, the more you say, like, this is could be a head here.
right.
It just all kinds of little grotesque images and things. So to me, it's a lot of fun, and I've been able to work on this for a few years and get it to the point where I think it's something viable,
Mm,
uh, something useful, especially with the fact that it moves and it's static.
right.
So that's a good thing and a bad thing too, because how do you package that, Um, so this is what I've been doing. It's something that I really have grown to love, and I built this because I would like people to, you know, play around with it, if they're so inclined.
Mm. Well, no, that's
Actually, it looks a little better here in
well,
bigger.
no, it's the what's really cool is that the viewer can become part of the art and can direct it and
Right, and it's always changing. And for me, what's interesting is that multiple ways in and out and around. Uh,
mm,
so to me, it just covers off on all those qualities that art is. You
well,
know,
it's becoming always, and
yes,
it's always doing that.
right. It's
Okay,
like, the river, it's stepping it 50 times. Is it the same river or is it a different river?
okay.
So philosophically, it kind of, I'm not setting out to make an image or anything like that, but it makes imagery and, frankly, this is another piece.
Hmm.
So, I could just put it on and look at it, relax and play with it. And then obviously this is the piece that's on the wall on the top, that piece that looks
Hmm.
like caves or something. Um,
The well, I'm thinking that this would be a lovely thing if you have one of those 65-inch or larger. Somebody's got a 101-inch television now, but if that when it wasn't playing something that you asked it to play, this would be just a lovely thing to have just be there and be changing and becoming all the time.
yes, it's art that moves you, art that you move.
Okay.
Um,
All right. Well, thank you.
so
Well, so the and I do understand your conundrum of packaging and because unfortunately, if you're going to have a life in the arts, it also has that business aspect.
yes, yes, and that's daunting too. And
Yes.
I've been trying with a lot of different techniques of outputting stuff, but I think maybe a move would be to produce my own pieces because it's certainly more cost effective and it can be done, especially if they're little pieces.
Yeah.
I originally thought, oh, I'm going to have to make these big things and sell them for lots of money, but I think there's more utility in putting it on a lot of different things and selling it as more craft items.
Well,
Uh,
and my wife has one of your images as a mouse pad, which I think that's a terrific application of it.
yeah, I have a mouse pad right here.
There you go.
So to me, it's like putting a piece of art on something, even a playing card.
Right.
It's just even something little, you can look at it and just turn it around and see different imagery in it. And it's to me, I find that exciting. I don't know if other people do, but the test is, do you like it in the morning? When you come back, when you've worked all night on something and you still like it in the morning.
Yeah.
And to me, it's still giving me pleasure even after all these
Well, all this work
years.
on it. Yes.
A lot of work goes into it, but now it's a whole different thing where I really have to try to sell it, and that's uh, that's the next phase too. And also refining my technique too. There's so much more that I
Right.
need to do. So I don't feel like, oh, this is it and I've mastered it. I'm just beginning. So
Right.
that's exciting that there's still all that out there that I
Okay.
can try to
All right. Well, why don't we come back
right.
from
So
the
let me
share?
stop sharing this.
Yeah.
All right, stop share. Okay,
Okay. Well, listen, thank you so much for sharing that with us. I will edit out the technical
good,
difficulties part
good.
since we did finally get to the art. And I will, and I, so this is you have a journey that a lot of, I, the thing that's really, you started out in a more commercial frame, but that really did lead you here because, and the communication that you learned there, I think, is in the work that you do now.
That's interesting that you see. I mean, I started doing this just like we'd be on business trip and people would be talking and there'd be no work to do. So I would just be doodling on my computer and you know, I'd be listening along. So it just got to be something. I just like the whole process of playing and mixing things up and seeing where that leads you. So it was nothing like intentional. It's just like happy different accidents that you keep playing and eventually something might come of it.
Masterpieces start with sketches.
Well, I mean, I feel proud of myself because I never considered myself an artist per se. But now with this work, I can really say, wow, that's art, you know?
Yeah,
These little things, these little plexiglass things,
yeah,
they're just, to me, they're very captivating,
yeah.
they're interesting, that you can hold them and look at them and just, interact with them.
Well, they're images you can get lost in,
Yes, that's,
which is that's really lovely. Anyway, but listen, thank you, Neil, for sharing
uh,
your work and your life with us. And Todd, if you want to return, there he is. Okay.
that's
Um,
good.
and yes, Todd, we will edit out the technical difficulties part, but
Only going to be a 15-minute production.
well, that's fine. We short and sweet is always
Yeah,
good.
yeah.
Anyway, so Todd, if you want to take us out.
Sure. Well, Neil, thanks again. I thought the images are so beautiful and mesmerizing. I'm gonna want to go back to your website.
Yeah.
Um, so folks, you can like, follow, and share us, on YouTube, where this is posted, and also visit masterworkarts.org. Neil, if you wouldn't mind sharing your website and
Sure.
ways that people can contact you, that would be great too. But thank you mostly for having this time with us and telling us a little more about your story.
Thank you. Good to meet you. And Joe, thank you for giving me the opportunity to broadcast a little about me and
Okay. Well, we'll get
be
anyway.
continued.
So this has been another Life in the Arts, and we will have the URL for Neil's website on the slides that you're about to see. And thank you for joining us.
Thank
Night.
you. All right. Bye-bye.